Good morning, spiritual companions. Today we are reading God, the Substance of All Form by Joel S. Goldsmith. Chapter 12. Good unfolding as the activity of individual consciousness. Page 166. Your consciousness determines your experience. You will be surprised at the miraculous things that happen from the moment you realize that your good is the unfoldment of your individual consciousness. From the moment that you are not looking for your good to come from up here or out there, from person, place, or thing, from the moment that you expect it as the outpouring of the activity of your own individual consciousness. Miracles begin to happen from that moment, and they really are miracles. The multiplication of the loaves and fishes is an example of what occurs when, like Jesus, you turn to the Father, your own consciousness, and realize that you cannot go out and buy enough bread and meat to feed 4,000 or 5,000 people, and that therefore it must come forth as the activity of your own consciousness. I have seen over and over again what happens to people when they realize that their good cannot come to them from outside, and that no outside evil conditions can prevent that good from coming to them. Do you think there is anything in the external world that can prevent your unfolding consciousness from revealing itself to you in the form of good? No, there is not. The external world cannot reach inside your consciousness to govern it or to affect it. External conditions affect us only when we believe that our good is coming to us from persons, places, or things. That is, from something in the external. When once we realize that out there has nothing to do with our unfolding good, because nothing out there can reach inside to affect or change or hinder the activity of our own consciousness appearing in all forms of good, then there can no longer be any effect from external conditions in our experience. The whole kingdom of God is within your own consciousness. The whole kingdom of God is unfolding to you from within your own being. And nothing, no group of people, no form of government, no kind of economy can in any way enter your consciousness to prevent it from unfolding as your individual good. How wonderful to know that from the beginning of time to the end of time, whatever good you need will continue to unfold as the activity of your own consciousness, and that unfoldment is never dependent on anything that is going on in the outer world. Do you see how it was that Moses could make manna fall from the sky and water come from the rock? Can you see why Jesus could get gold from the fish's mouth? Why? Because it was not an outside activity at all. It was the unfolding of his own consciousness, appearing outwardly in the form necessary at that moment. Both Moses and Jesus knew this secret. Both of them knew the secret of withinness. I am appears as form. Solomon knew this secret too. Years ago, in an old book presented to me in Boston, I discovered the secret word of masonry, which had been lost ages and ages ago during the building of King Solomon's temple. It was declared at that time that those who rose to the degree of master mason would be given the secret word, the password, which would enable them to go out into the world, and no matter where they traveled, the possession of this password would entitle them to a master's wage. The word was lost, and inasmuch as it is no longer used in masonry, it is not a secret. As a matter of fact, there are very few Masons who know about it at all. But the author of that book, after many, many years of research, discovered that the ancient and lost secret word of the Master Masons was, I am. I am is that ancient word, and if the builders of that temple had known it, it would have entitled them, wherever they were, to the highest wages, those of a master mason. That was Moses' secret, Solomon's secret, and Jesus' secret. I am. God is my very own consciousness. God is individual consciousness. And where I am, God is. Therefore, wherever I am, my unfolding good is. If I make my bed in hell, behold, thou art there. Because if I am there, God is there, and my unfolding good is there. Whither shall I go from thy spirit? Or whither shall I flee from thy presence? How can I get away from my own consciousness? It cannot be done while I am conscious. And it is that very consciousness, the activity of that consciousness, which is my supply, which is my opportunity, which is my guidance, direction, and wisdom. It is all so poetic to say, closer is he than breathing, and nearer than hands and feet. Or, the kingdom of God is within you. But we need more than poetry, more than beauty of expression, to become concretely aware of God, the nature of God, and the activity of God in our individual experience. As you become accustomed to the idea that the activity of your own consciousness appears in all forms of good to you, you will find that you will be able to take the next step and realize that the activity of your consciousness appears as the health of your patient. Since there is only one consciousness, and since one with God is a majority, then your conscious contact with consciousness, your realization that the activity of your consciousness appears in all forms of good, makes the activity of your consciousness appear as the health and harmony of your patient. That is what makes metaphysical healing possible. Regardless of what form of metaphysical practice is used to achieve the desired end, this practice does not consist of the transference of thought from one individual to another. It is not using one mind over another, even though there may be many practitioners who think that these human activities of suggestion or of influencing another are part of it. They really are not. If these people understood metaphysical practice, they would readily see that it is their conscious oneness with God which appears as the health and the harmony of their patients. It is not willpower. It is not a practitioner willing a patient to be well. It is not a practitioner suggesting to a patient, "You are well, and you know it." That is no part of modern metaphysical practice. Conscious oneness. Metaphysical practice consists of the practitioner's conscious oneness with God, which appears outwardly as his health, his wealth, his success, and that of all those who turn to him. The contact is made when a patient or person appearing as a patient asks a practitioner for help, or when a friend or relative of the patient asks for help. "Will you help me?" Or "Will you help my child?" Or "Will you help my friend?" That establishes the oneness of consciousness and brings the one needing help into the consciousness of the practitioner. So all that takes place as the activity of the practitioner's consciousness is outwardly expressed as the harmony and wholeness of the patient. In other words, it would be just as easy to take a whole room full of people into my consciousness, but it would be just as easy for any one of them, or all of them, to hold themselves out. That is what happens when you find 1 or 2 or 3 people being healed, and you wonder why the other 6 or 7 or 8 were not. Those who received the healing were in some way in rapport with the practitioner. They were in tune with the practitioner, at one with the practitioner, in sympathy or with reaching out to the practitioner in some way, bringing themselves in as part of the consciousness of the practitioner or teacher. The others who did not receive a healing were probably sitting back saying, "I wish you could do it, but I wonder if you can." In that attitude, they hold themselves out. True, they hold themselves out in belief only, but that is the way in which they fail to derive benefit from the activity of the practitioner's consciousness. It is not that the person or patient or student is necessarily making himself at one with the personal consciousness of the practitioner, but rather he is making himself at one with truth. He is more or less in the realization of, "I am at one with truth. I am at one with the consciousness of truth. I am at one with truth appearing as this practitioner or this teacher." That is being one with truth and not one with the personality or the mentality of the practitioner. At one with the truth of the individual, with the spiritual consciousness of the individual, and in that sense of attunement, at one-ment, healing can come forth. When you begin to know that truth is in your individual consciousness, and that the activity of this consciousness in you appears outwardly as the harmony of your being, or the harmony of all who may turn to you for help, then healing results. Healing is the proof of whether or not this message, or any message, is true. The way in which the message is presented has nothing to do with whether or not it is true. If it is true, it is resulting in harmony and peace, in joy and prosperity, in health and wholeness, at least in some measure in your individual experience and in the experience of those turning to you for help. That is your proof that the message is true. The function of truth is to dispel the illusion of sense. And the moment we are on this path and understand this truth, it is expected of us that we will begin healing work. How could anyone fail to do the greater works if he understands that it is the activity of his individual consciousness which appears outwardly as the health and harmony of the entire universe that touches him? And these signs shall follow them that believe. In my name shall they cast out devils, and they shall speak with new tongues. They shall take up servants, and if they drink any deadly thing, it shall not hurt them. They shall lay hands on the sick, and they shall recover. Mark 16, 17 and 18. End of chapter, end of book, and end of many of my questions. Thank you for being with me through this wonderful book of spiritual enlightenment.